Everyone, my name is Nate, and I am joined here by my sister Smay.
Hello.
And my very good friend Sarah.
Aloha.
And what we are planning on doing is introducing a very vast body of knowledge called the Freedom Teachings, or Keylontic Science. It goes by several names. And in order to present this extremely vast and complex body of information, I would like to have a conversation with both of you about it. So Smay, let's start with you and just present your concept of what this is, essentially.
My concept or my understanding of Keylontic science is that we are asleep. We've forgotten what our purpose here is. And as humans, we are more powerful than we could ever imagine. And that we're waking up and that this information is coming to us in various forms. I mean, Nate, you've been sharing this information with me since I was 16. And you've studied it for the last, 20 years, off and on, and sometimes we doubt, is this even true? And then other times we're like, oh my God, this is the truth, depending on what season of life we're in. But yeah, it's our process of waking up based on ancient knowledge that's starting to surface as we awaken.
Wonderful.
And that's really great listening to your description, because I do have to confess that I don't really have much knowledge of Keylontic science other than it's one of Nate's great passions. I've seen doodles and binders and watched many people follow him, but I struggled to hear the message of Keylontic science. And so I'm really happy to join you guys so I can see if it will speak to me differently now.
Okay, awesome. Those are great summaries. So what I'd like to do is just kind of lead this with your questions. And to the best I can do, I'll do my best to answer those questions. So where would you like to start with this?
I think we were having a conversation yesterday, and our mom, Nate, and this is Rachel speaking, she asked, what are dreams? What are those really? Is that us? Is that, just what they've conditioned, they being, Western society or whatever, conditioned us to believe that it's just, it's just a dream and nothing's actually truly happening, and it's just in our heads. So yeah, I would like to start there.
Okay, so to get to that, essentially dreams are experiencing higher states of consciousness that we don't usually have access to. And to get into that, we need to go into a quick lesson on dimensions, particularly interdimensional physics. So what we understand right now in contemporary Earth science is that we have at least 3 dimensions. And these are this is outside of the box of what contemporary Earth science has discovered even yet.
Contemporary Earth science, that's what they was.
Yes. Which is not a bad thing. It's just a limited range.
It's
and all of the devices and the theories that we have to look at the Earth are built out of the first 3 dimensions, and they're made to look mostly for the first 3 dimensions. And everything else is dark matter or what have you. It's kind of unlabeled and theoretical.
Yeah.
So in this way, this body of knowledge is also theoretical as it's presented, and it goes so far beyond what we know now, and it's returned to us from the ancient past, over 200,000 years ago. And one of the key elements of this is that every 3 dimensions is called a density, and they're all spinning on the same axis of particle rotation, because everything from an atom to a galaxy is in a spinning motion. And anytime we switch a density or down a density, so density 2 would be spinning on a 45-degree axis difference than the density that it contains within. So everything is basically nested layers.
Like Russian nesting dolls.
Exactly, like Russian dolls. Yes.
Thank you for that description.
Oh, yeah.
And then each one of these would basically be a layer around your auric field where every 3 dimensions spins the axis of rotation that it's on, and you actually have a tissue capsule or a body in each one of these densities.
So this is a picture of what we look like
What your
energetically.
energy body look like. Yes. So this is essentially our first lesson in interdimensional anatomy. So much like healing a hip problem, it helps to understand your muscle system, the ligaments that hold your skeleton together, and the skeletal system, and understanding that can help you heal. So damage done to the energetic anatomy, understanding what it's supposed to look like, is very helpful, because whatever we imagine will be seeded as something we can manifest in the near future.
So imagination is super powerful for healing
Absolutely.
the energetic body.
Absolutely.
I knew it. I knew it.
Precisely what seeds the next set. So we're going to go over this a little bit more. This is another chart. It's not exactly what it looks like, but this is my ability to put it into a form that we can learn from. So dimension 1, 2, 3 here is density 1. This is your incarnate body. And for each dimension...
So that's us sitting here right now.
That's
on
us
these
sitting
chairs,
here right now
looking at
recording
each other's-
on this.
Thank you
Fleshy
for your
pieces.
layman breakdown, Smay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very helpful for me.
Yeah.
Now, I'm thinking if there's going to be listeners, they can't really see what you guys are looking at, what we're looking at.
I will be editing in graphs
Okay.
to illustrate what we're speaking about, even though we're just doing an audio.
But this is
recording
really
right now.
cool for me because a lot of times what he says, I can't follow.
Mm-hmm.
But then when
It's
you
hard.
say it, and then I think, oh, okay, I got that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So keep on with the narrative, sister.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
So dimension, what is a dimension? This is a really good thing to identify, because it's not just an area of measurement or unit of measurement, for example. It corresponds to a level of consciousness, a sound tone, a color, a unit of matter density like a proton, electron, or a neutron, and also a chakra. The chakra being, that is your tool of your consciousness to interact with that level of dimensionality. And right now we're in dimension 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3,
Simultaneously?
Simultaneously.
We're experiencing all three of those.
we're experiencing all of
That's
those.
it. Okay.
In fact, according to this, time itself is something we're only experiencing linearly, but everything in the universe, in our time matrix, is all happening in one ever-unfolding now moment. So every
Did you
lifetime
say
you
one
ever...
ever unfolding what moment?
Now moment.
Now moment.
Yes.
Okay.
The eternal now.
Yes. Which means that any
I
other
just got
lifetime you
goosebumps.
had, you can connect to. They're still there,
And
even
it's
if it's
still
in the
playing
past or the
out.
future. Yes. And also, which means that if that is true, the work we do in this lifetime affects every other one that you've
Every
ever
other.
had.
Oh, okay. Every other
It can
lifetime.
change the decision that's happening now. Like whatever decision you're making right now can affect in real time
Yes.
somebody else or another you in a different dimension.
Yes. Not only other yous, but everyone.
Keep on with the interpretation, sister. Yeah.
Also, everyone who is part of your shield, or your family, or your community, your friends. The choices you make to heal yourself, downstep, and contribute to their energy fields, their morphogenetic field.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Us being more powerful than we even know.
Mm-hmm.
And that we're so asleep, and that our little small decisions have such a gigantic impact on just the galactic scale.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we can get into a little bit more of this later, but there are specific reasons why we can't remember this, or why it only trickles in tiny bits, or it's been fragmented because this reality has been basically held back from us.
How is that? And who did that?
Well, let's just
Is it
go over that very quickly
Okay,
and say
yes.
there are forces that do not want humanity to wake up. And we can do a whole series on this actually, and that goes into ancient history relating not only to the Earth, but our solar system and our universe or time matrix at large. There's been significant damage done to it from higher densities with technologies that are hard for us to comprehend. And the idea is that if humans could be tricked into thinking they were powerless and they were subservient to these forces, then they wouldn't realize that we are actually the guardians of this planet.
Humans are the guardians of this planet.
Yes.
Or
We're the gatekeepers.
The gatekeepers, the
Yeah.
angels.
We are the angels, yes. And so, in many ways, this whole interdimensional anatomy portion of 15 dimensions, 12 of being in manifest reality, and the higher you go in dimensionality, the more everything is represented as a consciousness collective rather than an individual being. Because you are yourself a consciousness collective of many different beings, and you're also a part of families of consciousness collectives. And also, planets have these things too. Planets have chakras. They're called stargates. And the universe has this template as well of 15 dimensions, which most things in contemporary, like the New Age movement or information that has survived the cataclysms of the past and been turned into control dogma religions, they still contain elements of this that is truth. It contains the truth encryption.
But it's distorted.
It's distorted on purpose because it's kind of encouraging people to put their power outside of themselves rather than to realize the power is within them.
Yeah.
And all of this information is based on the law of one, which is essentially
The law of attraction.
the law of one,
One.
which means that everything came from one thing. And in answering questions about why the universe, one of my favorite answers was ever given by Ken Wilber in A Brief History of Everything, a book he wrote in the 2000s, I believe. And he was talking about how science answers the how question very well. It doesn't answer the why question very well, though, because it doesn't deal with that. So when asking the question, why the universe? Why do I exist? Scientific answer is, oops, because it's just a random thing that happened.
This is like this explosion that happened, we think. It's
Yeah.
a theory. And then, bam, some elements floating around.
Right, which to some extent is accurate. It's just a very small portion of the picture. And it also doesn't help much answer questions like, who am I? Why am I here? What is life? What is God? What does that even mean? So under the law of one, the implication is that everything came from source or God source. I kind of prefer the term God source or source because the term God is pretty loaded
It's
with
super loaded.
preconceived notions. But if everything came from source, that means everything is also made. So under the law of one, the implication is that everything came from source or God source. I kind of prefer the term God source or source because the term God is pretty loaded
It's
with
super loaded.
preconceived notions. But if everything came from source, that means everything is also made of source, where energy is literally consciousness in manifest form. Even if it's a rock or a piece of space dust, it's still made out of source consciousness. And understanding that, if we all realize that when I look into your eyes, or your eyes, I'm looking at a
mirror.
fragment of God that forgot you were source, and I forgot too. And if this is the only law that exists in an advanced civilization, this is called the Lyran-Syrian societal model, where if this is the only law necessary, and if everyone accepts it, then co-creative brotherhood is the only logical answer for behavior. There's
Like
no
world peace.
That would
Yes.
be, I know.
there's no
That
reason
would
to
be
have other
awesome.
laws. But that's only if people accept the law of one.
So if they accept looking into somebody else's eyes, even if, you know, they could be, you know, a hateable murderer, and realize that, oh, you are
That's
also
a piece
God's
of being.
source.
Yeah, being kind to anyone,
Yeah,
even if
that
they're not being kind to
compassion.
you.
Literally, that's compassion.
Yeah, the
What is
definition
that?
of compassion.
What is
Yeah.
that?
So when
that
people aren't acting from a place of compassion, are they on a different, like, dimension? Like, are we stuck?
Well, let's just say their intent is different. It's not working with the law of the universe. The intention of how the universe was created to foster it like a gardener. You know?
So is this what I know about fallen, or like an angel that's fallen, or that just means that they are making these free will choices that are keeping them asleep.
It's the term is non-Christic or anti-Christic.
Anti-Christic
Christic meaning
decisions.
in the vibe of the law of the universe, which is also a rule. If you're working with an interdimensional system, we could break it down to a garden. Let's say you want to grow tomatoes in your yard. There are things you could do. You could pour Roundup on it and get GMO seeds, and it will look like a tomato. That's not really a Christic way because it pulls all the nutrients, the minerals out of the soil, all the microbes and the worms suffer that way, and then the nutrition of the tomato will suffer as well. So there is a more correct way to do it, where I've known gardeners, they walk around barefoot singing to their plants and stuff like that. They're the most healthy ones out there.
And then the most delicious.
But I do like that you mentioned free will, because in the design of the universe, every being has free will. And it is possible to make enough choices that their ability to exchange energy with source energetically in their template or their energetic anatomy, if it's no longer able to exchange energy with source, they must feed on something else. To survive.
And that's 8 and 12.
8 and 12. We should get into a Cathara grid to describe that a little more.
I'm jumping ahead.
That's
doesn't
okay.
Make any sense.
That's okay. So let's go with another thing. We'll get a little more basic here. This is the smallest measurable unit of manifest reality. It's called a particle unit. And it's essentially just one little flashing, unimaginably microscopic piece of energy that when it comes into manifestation, it polarizes to electric, magnetic, male, female, light, sound. And it flashes back and goes back to source. And when it comes back, it brings the energy with it.
Just so I can understand, because a lot of times I don't really just understand what you're saying, is what is manifest reality?
Manifest reality is the one you can experience. That's out here. Spiritual means non-manifest. So that's the realm of thought, meditation, and prayer, the realm of creativity.
But so manifest isn't what you want your reality to be.
It can be. It's also a verb, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
in this context, I'm saying anything before this, before you even get to atoms and molecules and cells like that, this is just a tier at a quantum level of what things look like.
Okay.
Where it's the choice of source to created the first particle unit that polarized and then came back and then it doubled.
And this is manifest reality?
Yes.
Okay.
The smallest measurable unit.
Okay.
So this is what energy has to go through in order to become us sitting here.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. And this is happening so many trillions of times per second.
Yeah. And it's going back and forth and allowing us to just exist.
Yeah.
In the bag of body that we're in.
Okay.
So in this model, that means that the universe is literally manifesting and demanifesting countless times per second. And that's why the next layers up from a particle unit is a particle grid, which much like you know those signs over the door that says, "Come on in, we are open." And it looks like the letters are traveling. It's a flash line rhythm that gives the illusion of movement. So much, the implication would be, much like you moving through a room, it is your choice consciously to do that. You're manifesting and demanifesting, giving the appearance of
reminds
movement.
me of Donnie Darko.
Oh my God, I've seen that in so long. And I didn't get that movie either. Seriously. I need you to be my interpreter.
Okay.
It's kind of like breaking it down into layman's is part of why I think I had never really responded. I could see that people, even you guys sitting in front of me, are really inspired, but it starts to maybe sound too scientific or something where I can't follow the story.
I struggled with that too, but if I can translate it in my own terms, I would never be able to describe it as eloquently as you do. But I get it. I think I get it.
Yeah.
And then I can
Yeah, but even your interpretation is helping me with a different type of picture so then I can say, oh, that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
So I think that's actually the discussion between the two of you. Exactly. Yeah. I'm a layman.
Yeah. That's why I really wanted to. I really wanted to do it in this format because I've always struggled when this is a lecture format that it doesn't.
I can't
sometimes
hear it.
people check out.
I can't. I had tried, and I could see so many people like listening and following and so inspired, and I'd be like, I have no idea what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. Even seeing anything that looks mathematical or science, there's just something inside of me that's like, nah, I can't. I've had seen Nate's drawings for years and flipped through his books.
And it just doesn't...
It doesn't come in. So even just saying the Russian dolls, I was like, oh, she's talking about... Oh.
It's still recording.
Okay.
Oh, it's still
Okay.
So
Anyways,
So building on the Partikai unit thing.
Yes.
And remember, the Partikai has a neutral imprint, like a neutron.
Yep.
The Partikai unit has an electrical frequency to it, like an electron, and the Particum unit has a magnetic or a proton.
Is the electric one masculine and
Yes.
the magnetic one feminine?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Negative only meaning negative only means its polarity. So a magnetic, the function of magnetism is vibration, which is redefined in this paradigm. Vibration is the function of drawing in energy, like a magnet. Where electricity is the function of pushing energy out, or oscillation, like light.
Like a generator.
Yeah, but both are equally important, and the balance between them is necessary. One of the distortions that was removed from Christianity specifically was the Divine Mother.
That's why it's a patriarchy.
Because it's Father, Son, Holy Spirit. That makes women subservient and good breeders, essentially. So there's a whole dark story to that.
I'm like, not this woman. I made a stance when I was like 10. I'm like, not signing up for that plan.
So here's something also going into a higher ordered complexity. So much like atoms to molecules to cells, right? We have Partikai units to Partikai grids. These are just layers of structured complexity. Partikai grids form to group to form Keylons. A Keylon it's the first thing that looks like a symbol code. That's why Keylontic science is all these symbol codes. They're the precursors to matter.
Oh, it's those little little marks?
Yes. Information is encrypted in there. So these are the precursors to matter. Right? And then Keylons group to form Keylon codes, which group to form morphogenetic fields.
It's the language.
Yeah, it's a language.
Okay.
A light sound code language. So a morphogenetic field you could think of as the beginning of your spirit body, essentially. It's the consciousness field that holds the template. You know what that word means in this context, right? Template?
No.
So a template is basically the information that stores it. So much like a blueprint, you give that from an architect to a builder, and they know how to build the house because they have a template for it.
The blueprint.
Yeah. Or much like having, a stencil set where you're like, oh, here's a circle. Helps you draw a perfect circle because you have a template to assist you in doing so. So in this context, a template is your divine blueprint, your morphogenetic field, your spirit body before you chose to come into manifestation, before it had any distortions whatsoever. From experience, damage, trauma, whatever it might be, your template, the divine template is the one also referred to as...
That's why babies be so pure.
That's why babies be so pure, yeah.
But, so why are babies pure?
Because they have this undistorted, untouched template.
That they first come into the world with. Mm-hmm. And then how does the template change?
Because as you live your life, your DNA template is accreting or absorbing experience and information.
From this reality?
From this reality.
Experience?
Yes, and it can be positive or negative. Traumas can occur there. But also, we'll get more into the distortions that exist not only on Earth, but in our time matrix at large. So technically, babies aren't completely pure because they don't have access. None of us have access to this entire template. This is more a roadmap of something that is possible that we're working towards right now.
Oh, are we really working towards that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
it doesn't feel
some
like
people
it.
are. Some people are. And we'll get into these two competing realities that have been one has been at war with the other. The anti-Christic one has been more with the Christic one for a long time.
And so are we going to find out information about why now is so important? We're in the year 2022 at this point.
Yeah.
And why are we here now discussing this even? And why are we wanting to share it? And what,
Okay, also, why is this information suddenly available? That's a very good question. Because the last time, so there's something called a stellar activation cycle. This is something that only happens at certain times in different systems, whether it be a galaxy, a solar system, or a whole time matrix. There are certain times when alignments happen, planetary alignments, time alignments, and they relate to the universal ways that time work in these different densities. The last stellar activation cycle that was possible was, I believe, 206218 BC,
Whoa.
which is 210,000 years ago right now.
And how do you know that?
That's because the information in this translation is telling us that.
And
Where did you get the translation from?
So the translations are stored on what are called the Cloister Dora Tura plates. Cloister referring to undistorted, like it's contained. The information has been saved and not allowed to be retranslated throughout time, and it's returned to humanity by Guardians.
It's like raw data.
Raw data.
Okay.
There was a little controversy with some of the Guardians, is what I remembered.
Yeah, there are. There always are. Some people. So let's go into ETs a little bit. Because it's not one or two or three. There are maybe like 10 dominant ones that have interacted with humanity over time, whether it be for positive, for benevolent, or malevolent reasons.
These are races of ETs.
Races
like
of
10
ETs, yeah.
Types. Okay.
Some of which are connected to our gene codes. They could be thought of as family for us, or bad uncles that became alcoholics and they forgot their connection to source. And really, evil as a concept is only the ignorance of source connection
with source.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And anyone operating not under the law of one has chosen to ignore that. They have the free will choice to do that, but by doing so and taking actions that damage your energetic template, it can damage your Partica unit's ability to exchange energy with source, at which point you essentially become a vampiric being.
That's why I feel like a zombie.
Yeah,
and it's like you have to
Zombies
fight
and vampires are
fight
real.
to stay in the
It
game.
takes work. There are forces at large that by doing nothing, you are atrophying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why we all got to do the work.
Yeah. Even though many points of my life, I have felt like just by coasting and chilling, like, oh, I'm stable.
Nope.
Yeah.
No,
stable.
that's just a slow trickle to death, right?
What is stable anyways? That's boring.
Yeah. I think at best,
You're going backwards.
Yeah.
Stay still. Don't do that.
I remember a quote I really like from Morgan Freeman in The Shawshank Redemption, where he says,
Oh my God, love
you got to get busy living or get busy dying. There's
Yeah.
no in between.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
And also going back to that, one person we're both a fan of is Joe Dispenza, who he has a beautiful ability to downstep information like this, even though he's not speaking specifically from this paradigm of the freedom teachings.
Yeah, he has his own way of filtering quantum physics.
And I've often struggled with just wanting a day off,
Yeah.
I just want a day off to atrophy every once in a while or something.
Give me just I'm atrophying today. Yeah. Oh my God.
And the way he presented it is he had everyone in a classroom raise their hands. He's like, how many of you believe that thoughts are things? And they're like, most of the class raises their hand. He's like, but if you really did believe that, if you really believe that every thought that went through your head led to an experience, why would you ever let a thought slip that you didn't want to experience?
Why would you allow yourself to continue thinking negative ones?
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's a choice.
It
doesn't
is a choice.
feel like one.
So was he
sometimes 'cause
ultimately
it's
saying a
habit.
thought isn't a thing?
Oh, it is a thing.
Oh,
It is a
thoughts
thing.
are
But
things.
for
Okay.
people that say they believe that and are still suffering, it's like, then you don't believe it's real. You're still
Right.
taking days off. Or perhaps I'm not putting in the effort and work to heal pathological thought patterns that don't make me feel good. Like we were talking about earlier, the feeling of worthlessness or lack of purpose has been huge in that.
Depression.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
I
why
think-
am I here? Every day I'm like, what am I looking for? What am I, how do I feel like there's purpose?
What am I doing? I think that's a universal question that anyone who would possibly be listening to this has thought or felt at one point.
You're
in
like,
their
it
life.
can't
This
just
is-
be this.
right?
Please tell me
Yeah.
there's something
The good news
more.
is it's not.
It's not just
Yeah.
this.
But in terms of what
There's
your
hope.
in terms of what your actual purpose is compared to mine or yours,
Maybe entirely different.
what we're learning here, what this body of information is presenting, is a model of how to think about reality in a way where it gives you the tools to download what your purpose is and be in tune with that, because it gives you the tools to be vertically connected to source anytime you want
we
to.
each have a different set of skills based on our soul's previous experiences and lifetimes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then let's go up back to the dimensional grid here. So the names of these densities here. So density 1 is your physical body. Density 2, this would be your soul body. So this is the first one you experience when you start to sleep. The damage done between these
that was our
densities-
initial question.
Yeah.
Where do you go when
See,
you sleep?
It takes a while. I'm tracking it. We'll come around to it. Yeah.
Okay.
But there's just happens to be too much information to explain it without sounding like
Wait.
two sentences of yoga.
Density 6 is your soul body. Is that
Density
what you're saying?
2, which
Density
is
2.
dimension 4, 5, and 6.
Oh, dimension 4, 5,
Yeah.
and 6. I see. Okay.
And then each one of these also has a level of consciousness. So density 1 is your subconscious mind. 2 is your instinctive or emotional mind. 3 is your reasoning mind. 4 is your astral mind. So this is the one, this is the strand that humanity has been working on for a very long period of time to activate and work on together. And once this is activated, you can begin to see things that other people cannot. Because you're able to peek in and see through the veils of another dimension. For most people, this happens in dreams or meditation.
That would be lucid dreaming, or mediums, psychics, people who can see things that maybe others can't because they're activated.
They did the work to activate their DNA strand, really.
Because I know that I've had experiences that modern contemporary science is not explaining well
they'll give
enough
you pills
for
for
my
Yeah.
for my satisfaction.
We'll give you pills to shut down those higher
Yeah.
activations so
yeah,
you don't
or-
have to worry about it.
Yeah, or make pharmaceuticals and alcohol legal. It's like, no, don't remember.
I was thinking earlier today, it's so interesting that the term ATF, it was like, what is the ATF? It's the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. I was like, oh, those are 3 things that is rampant killing happens of everyone.
Yep.
They just kind of, if you do it too much, they're like, there's laws in place to prevent you from doing that.
Yeah.
So anyway, we have incarnate body, soul body, oversoul body, and avatar body. And the sound tones in each of these are quite interesting because ma'a, hara, and ta'a are the sound tones of dimension 12, 11, and 10. So the Maharata texts, which is where this comes from, is the information stored in the Earth's Akashic memory, stored in a digital form to bring this information back to us.
And so it's stored. How does the information get to us?
That requires significant training. So there's currently one speaker right now. Her name is E'Asha Ashayana. She's basically been training for her whole life for this, and it's very distinctive from channeling in that it's not beings speaking through her that she's opening up to. It's electronically transmitted technology that comes into her template, and it manifests as pictures and images translated into her native language, which is English, because she's American.
So this is just one supercomputer talking to a different supercomputer.
It's beings, though.
But they're beings, but they're
yes.
Yeah,
the plates themselves they're metal discs that were given to humanity 250,000 years ago as a gift.
So CDs, they're like, here's some CDs, enjoy.
Well, they're made of some kind of metal. They store unimaginable amounts of information, right? Mm-hmm. But they also happen to unlock and work because there's 12 of them. So they work with the different stargates on the planet. which if abused and not guarded for by the guardians of them, they can be abused and do things to cause like a pole shift, for example, cause massive, massive damage. Or
I think we're coming up to a pole shift. What do they?
well, there are people and beings that would hope that you believe that, because if humanity collectively believes that, same thing with 2012. What was the
become
success?
things.
Ooh.
So if we
Yeah.
have this collective belief that there's going to be World War III or climate change disaster, that's going
I've
to
been
kill
struggling
everyone.
with the thoughts of war because of
Well,
the
it's not
current
like
climate.
you aren't being assisted externally to think that. Because
Yeah,
just imagine, especially since 9/11, there have been a growing trend of apocalypse movies, after the war, where people are just struggling in some wasteland.
Just looking
TV
at the headlines
shows,
in the news right now.
headlines and news.
I get
Oh, that's
worried
the
about
system in itself.
Ukraine.
Yeah.
Don't read the news.
And it's I know, and I'm just a headline reader too.
Engaging with that information is designed to scare you.
And then you have your fear and anxiety, and that's fuel.
But I believe
want-
it. I believe in people's propensity for evil.
Mhm.
It's there.
It's a real thing.
Sad.
Yeah. Evil is just the lack of knowledge, though. The lack of connection to source.
I know.
But horrible things can be
can't more
done.
people just start hugging some trees and stuff.
We can. If we work on our...
Right, we can only be responsible for us.
Yeah,
I
you
get
can't
so
tell everyone what to do, but you can show them
yes,
what to do.
right, be the
by your
change.
behavior.
I struggle with that. I fret over suffering on the planet on a daily basis.
So here's an interesting thing, too. What the term Christic and anti-Christic that I'm using, I'm not referring to Jesus in the Bible.
Well,
It's-
it's
the title
funny
is
that you
Christ.
say that, because there's so many things that kind of overlap with Christianity and even Vedic tradition.
Right.
So, some reason when I read the chakras and the dimensions, then I can get a visual picture. Because when something I struggle with, just to share, is tables and charts. Even in my work, I don't understand them. I actually, my mind doesn't work like that.
I struggle with even looking at your notes, but if I had
a different story of circular something, and I hear you talking, and I go, oh, okay, yes, all right, I'm there. It's like I'm trying to assimilate things that I understand to understand what Keylontic science is.
So think of every religion, because if you're familiar with Vedic, Christianity, any other religion, they all came from this stuff.
It makes sense.
In the distant past. After cataclysms happened to the earth, different groups and cultures of people that held that information sacred, even if it was just maybe just one dimension's worth of the sacred knowledge. Unfortunately, it got turned into a control dogma because it wasn't a self-empowerment paradigm anymore. And where God is external of you, and how dare you be born, and shame.
You must be humble.
Yeah. And only through this deity can you possibly even think of going to heaven. So the term Christ itself refers to this choice to come into manifestation at dimension 12. When you are a being of consciousness or connected with God and said, I'm going to go down there, there are 7 audible sound tones when manifestation happens. And those sound tones are Ka, Ra, Ya, Sa, Ta, Ha, La. The Hala portion going mostly to the Eastern or Muslim as Allah as a deity, and the Christ part for short going to like the Western religions. But the Christale is kind of an abbreviation, and also where the term crystal comes from, and the title Christ as well. But a Christic being would be one who understands the law of the universe, or has a basic understanding at least, and chooses to work with that. Where anti-Christic is, I'm going to do my own thing. I don't care about that at all.
So, do you think Keylontic science is kind of exclusive? Because there are people that live that way that have never heard of Keylontic science, and they still practice.
That's fine. Yeah.
That's fine.
So this information is its importance to me is I'm an indigo who it's apparently part of my job. I've come to understand that was to learn this and also be a part of teaching it to the best that I can. Even though, in my opinion, my ability to teach it is like, fractions of a percent for like compared to E'Asha, for example.
Well, hey. Look at where we're starting.
Yeah.
But the hard work done by the people that are trying to really wrap their minds around this and do the exercises like the meditations, the journeys, and the songs that came with it in the past was about reintroducing these energies into the grids of the Earth, because it's been gone for over 200,000 years, and in many cases much longer than that. But human beings were basically like this high energy radio, not a radio antenna, but an antenna that can downstep from the top. And when we do songs and sing, dance around like Native Americans, around a fire or something like that, we're actually contributing the energy that we're downstepping and injecting it into the Earth grids.
And by downstepping, you mean pulling from source.
Pulling from source, yeah.
Through our body, and then...
Yeah, and all the intermediaries in between, whether it be your soul family, your guardian groups, whoever, they're all assisting, and you're the ground team.
So I'd be liking my dance jams.
Yes, totally.
That's one of the most spiritual experiences I have is dancing.
Yeah.
And I think that everyone has had a single mystical experience in their life, whether they are denying it, that can't be real, or that they have
or was
many.
It coincidence?
Yeah, or it's coincidence, like, oh no, that didn't happen, but I felt like there was something more. So do we have this innate knowledge without consciously maybe understanding Keylontic science? Are we doing things just on an energetic scale that are helping us activate and,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
move towards, or like even just making good decisions? Like I'm gonna eat this healthy meal, or I'm gonna go for a run, or I'm gonna be nice to somebody. That's moving us forward in activation.
Mm-hmm. And so here's to add on that. It doesn't mean you have to do the work to put everything in the grids, right? After that's done, it's in the morphogenetic field of the Earth. And it's in the morphogenetic field of other people. So you probably heard of the 100th monkey syndrome, right? No?
Explain that.
Well, it's been like heavily debunked and stuff by people that don't know what a morphogenetic field is. But it was an observation of a team of people that were watching monkeys that lived on different islands. And they were watching the people that were visiting there. They would wash their food in the water. And so a couple of monkeys started washing their food because they were emulating what the humans were doing. Mm-hmm. And the people were like, oh, look at that. They're doing what we do. And then they would go to the other islands and realize the other monkeys were also doing that, which they had never observed before. And so the explanation to that was those monkeys, if enough of them had the weight, the 100th monkey, like 100 just being an arbitrary number, if enough of them can contribute those ideas, then every one of their species can tap into that and behave that way if they want to. So the collective energetic draw of high frequency is much more powerful than
is there
suffering
something
and pain.
like, when you hear about twins or brothers and sisters that were separated, like, do you have more of a connected experience with who you're genetically, or are we all genetically?
To some extent.
I think we have.
Yeah.
You were talking about, you always talk about like your soul family. So like I incarnated and you're my brother in this life, but like we had some beef or something that we still are needing to...
Or we're a team.
Or we're a
like,
team.
I can't do this alone.
Team.
You
You kind of need this feminine on your team here.
It's true.
I'm liking the team.
That's the magnetic, feminine.
I know.
Magnetic, masculine, electronic. But I think you can find, sometimes when you will make eye contact with a stranger and it's just like, oh wait, no, I know you. And then it's gone. And that's like...
that's a good
That's
example.
my favorite experiences is connection with people. Like, truly.
Yeah, it's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not sure how far we're going here, because this is listing in seconds, not minutes.
The initial question.
Yeah.
Where do we go when we sleep?
Where do we go when we sleep?
Oh.
Yeah.
You experience all your higher dimensions of consciousness, from your incarnate body to your soul body to your oversoul body to your avatar body. The problem is to recover those consciously in dimension 1, 2, and 3 is almost impossible, other than maybe a few words or images or a feeling as you're coming to consciousness before you open your eyes in the morning.
Before you wake up.
And that's because the damage that has been done to the grids in our time matrix,
What
essentially.
if you vividly remember your dreams?
Then that means that someone has their second density strands of consciousness in higher activation than most people do.
What if you feel sensations very real, like the sensation of cold or pain or pleasure in a dream. And you remember that when you wake up and it feels like it was real.
Oh, that's very interesting. I'm not sure I know how to answer that one.
Oh.
It could be related to your emotional body. So chakra 2 was the one that fed that down because something was happening in this line of polarization, which would be electrical, which often, like I'm getting hot right now. Usually when I talk about this stuff, I heat up because I'm being electrical. And when I'm receiving it, I tend to get cold because I'm being magnetic and drawing it in. So I don't experience the temperature fluctuations that much, though. So in context of a dream, I'm not sure I know the answer to that.
Well, I guess I'll have to find out.
Yeah.
Keep us posted.
Yeah,
But just holding these concepts in your mind, you can go to bed with that intention and let your higher selves process that and trickle it down to you.
Yeah. I'll call you tomorrow morning.
Okay. Well, I'll be here. So. So one thing I would like to really go over, because this is super important and doesn't really make sense without doing at least the basics of Partakai units, dimensions, dimensional structure. This is a Cathara grid. Ka being light, Tha being sound, and Ra being one. So
Are these the little Partakai?
these are dimensions here.
Okay.
So dimension 1, 2, 3. And this is density 1, 4, 5, 6, density 2.
So that was
The tables.
Yep,
the tables.
Yep.
Okay.
But it's in a
Yeah. This is my interpretation. This table here, it's
Yep.
not really what anything looks like.
Okay.
It's just a way for me to understand it. This is actually what the structure looks like. And it's very important to be able to imagine that this is perfectly symmetrical. This is a square from node 3, 4, 10, 9 here.
This is a little easier for me to understand.
Right.
When I visually look at it.
Right. And this might look similar to some people as being it's survived in Kabbalah and also Knights Templar, kind of some anti-Christic elements. And what they have is one that is missing node 12 and 8, and it's upside down where node 1 is at the top, which is a reversed anti-Christic template. It's literally what these beings are operating on. The golden ratio, or the golden meanie, or the Fibonacci or fib of no chi spiral is drawn off a broken Cathara grid.
I feel like when you describe, like, I'm just going to, like, chop that off and, like, throw that over here and fucking turn it on its head. It's like, to me, it's like somebody going in and altering a work of art, you know, that's in itself is pure and perfect, and just like, you don't need this. Cut it off, throw it away. Or even surgery, like going in and like, you don't need the appendix, not doing anything anyway. And then like spin it around, put it on its head, and then it's all fucked up. It's all messed up.
Yeah, you know, there's a really good example of that in a lot of New Age teachings. The idea of letting your ego die is really popular.
Ego death.
Ego death.
Yeah, but
I just
here's
heard
the thing.
that recently, and I was like, I like that.
Yeah, but also it sounds attractive, right? Because ego is usually associated with bad things like selfishness. The ego is your station of consciousness to view dimension 1, 2, and 3.
My little box.
Yeah, to cut it out, to let it die, is basically saying you don't want to interact with this density anymore.
Oh, but we need it.
It's necessary. It's not, but it thinks it's the only one because this is the density most people can perceive.
And that's why
So
it's evil,
gets-
because it thinks it's the only one.
It thinks it's king shit. Yeah, exactly. So it's not about. It's about integrating it. Much like if you have an organ that's overproducing that can lead to cancer. It's not about killing off the cancer and killing your body at the same time, like with chemotherapy, although that can be an effective therapy. Healing the distortion that led to that overproduction or that imbalance is more important, which can be many, many things. And I'm not a doctor, so I can't really give it any medical advice on that. It's more of just an example of what happens when things are out of balance. And the ego thinking it's the only or the best means of perceiving what all the realities of the universe are is a problem because it's the lowest one in the densest density.
That's why we're all stuck in, though, because we think it's the only one. So anything beyond, like, like if you ask those questions, like, what is my purpose?
Yeah.
And he was like, nah, shut up. There's nothing else out there.
Yeah. And being gentle with your ego.
That's the one thing that I won't surrender to. I'm like, there's got to be more than this. But it almost becomes torturous.
It does.
When you can't find the answer.
Yep.
Because you're viewing through that box.
Which no wonder substance abuse is so prevalent, right? And mental issues, of which are really just unhappiness and diseases that are derived from despair and lack of purpose.
That I do understand. What about the animals? Just looking at
what about the animals? What do you mean?
Like, how do they?
They also have a Cathara grid and an energetic anatomy as well.
Okay, that's the
right.
Way, yeah.
Not necessarily 12 strands in biological form. That's something extremely unique to humans.
That's why it's so
as
cool
the gatekeepers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're like the cockroaches. It's
that's the distortion. That's the idea been given to us, is that it's our fault that the Earth has so many problems. No, it's all these intruder forces.
Well, and the Earth it's kind of thinking that we have power over the Earth sometimes, I think to myself.
But if it's a stewardship and guardian position, it's kindness, which is powerful compassion, right? But it is power. It is a place of power because power can be abused. Much like much like having a pet, for example. Sometimes people take out their frustrations on a less powerful being, and that being suffers, right? Yeah.
Saturn's here too.
We love you, Saturn.
Yeah.
She's holding space.
Yeah, she totally is.
She's a good girl.
So in any case, this Cathara grid is very important because it links to the universal structure. Like our time matrix has this structure as well. Our planet has this structure. And the way these link together, let me pull up. I did some vector artwork on these in Keylon codes in the past. So these link together at the top. Here's also a Cathara grid. This is a form of creation. So the choice to create, when you have an idea, let's say you want to make a painting, that thought, when it enters your mind, as you feed it, it begins replicating like a cell, like a cell birthing. And as you give it energy, it comes into manifestation and holds the same template.
It's making me choke a little bit. I mean, that's like I feel that. I feel that on like a daily basis. Like I have an idea that I want to manifest and put on a canvas or like make a sculpture or something, and it just starts growing until it's through my fingers.
So cool.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see your artwork.
Yeah.
I have this one that's the birth of thought, and this is literally, it's like this hand taking a baby out of somebody's head that's shaped like looks like a brain, but it's a baby.
Oh, that's a great picture.
Yeah, that
actually.
one's
we should put a slide of that on here. I think that would be wonderful. So here's how Cathara grids nest together. The node 12 connects in the center to make 4. So in this way, our universe, or our Eka that we're in, has a parallel universe made out of the antiparticles it has a relationship to, which has a vertical. The horizontal line would be the electrical. The vertical would be the magnetic component of that. If damage is caused to any portion of this, it affects the entire template. But just having this picture, it helps understand why this pattern of 4s, is so important to what is Christic sacred geometry. Because sacred geometry is something that most people think of, if it has a spiral, if it's a Fibonacci spiral. That is actually a broken structure, though, because it doesn't have a center point, and it has to feed off of the Christic structure, which always will go to the center point. And you can see here, the golden meanie is one of the nicknames for it, is that it will coincide at certain points. This one was August 2012. The next one coming up is November 2023.
Oh, man.
November or August?
November 2023. Oh. Which corresponds
to... Come to our house for Thanksgiving?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm like, oh, man, I got to get ready.
Yeah, working.
And this is something we can get into later, what's happening there, but it's essentially the separation of these two realities that have been coexisting and competing for dominance for a very long period of time. It's another reason why we're experiencing so much extreme polarized
It's
understandings.
acceleration. It feels like it's
It
accelerating.
is accelerating.
Things are happening so fast.
So the intent of those are working with the Metatronic or the broken spiral. They're trying to siphon off and pull as many people with them as they go on this fall path, because they're already on the fall path. They know it. What they're doing, what they have done, is actually quite brilliant. It's astounding to even begin to understand, because it relates to gates throughout our entire cosmos, to break
Gates,
things.
like gates,
Stargates, connections to other planets, but the work has been done to separate these two spirals. So after that point in time, they're kind of going to be phasing out of each other, where the power of the control structure is going to have much, much less authority. It's very interesting.
I want to go with the
Pretty sure you're on that
peaceful ones.
path. Yeah.
Good, okay.
You would have to make some drastic changes to your life to go on the fall path, right?
But there's the fear that can be fed off of if I'm scared. The fact that we're even aware that there's anything like this that's going to happen, I'm sure is all we need to know.
Yeah. And rest assured that, like, there's so much bad news in this, much like you can get lost in conspiracy theories for what.
I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in what the bad guy's new plan is. I'm interested in what I can do in order to ensure that, like, shit can get peaceful. That's my goal.
Yeah, and it almost, the only reason it matters, excuse me, about how nefarious plans could be, or what is going on the dark side of things, the only reason that matters is to be able to present the solutions of how we fix it, which are all spiritual.
Yes, I'm not denying it exists. My awareness wants to be on, the solution path.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I would say that you definitely
That's a good
are.
way of putting it, because I can't hear conconspiracy theories. It's another thing that's like blah,
which is
blah.
why I'm steering away from that, because it's the less relevant information anyway.
It's like a tone I can't follow.
So we'll end kind of with this. This is a merkaba field, right? Two intersecting tetrahedrons, top being electrical, bottom being magnetic. Electrical, magnetic. And when they come together, the top spins clockwise and the bottom spins counterclockwise. The balance between these two spins is what pulls in source energy to your template, essentially. And what we've been trained to do, there's a lot of misinformation on Earth right now about even what a merkaba field is or what to do with it. And it's very important to remember these relationships. Is 33 1/3 counterclockwise to 11 2/3, clockwise. Electrical top is 33 1/3 clockwise. Bottom magnetic is 11 2/3 counterclockwise. In terms of their relationships, this is trillions of times a second this happens, right? Per trillionth of a second. So the top goes roughly 3 times for the bottom's 1 turn. And that balance is super important, because that's what draws source energy into the center. And many teachings right now in the New Age movement are teaching you to phase lock your merkaba or spin it upside down at the wrong ratios. And unknowing people that have the best intentions in mind, if they're misguided, can actually cause damage to their own templates and the planet by doing so. So this is one of the reasons why this information is so vast in depth, is because it's essentially a roadmap to what is unknown territory. Even though all this information is in our DNA, it's just in the 90-some% of what contemporary Earth science calls junk DNA, because it's not coding protein. It's unactivated.
Or gray matter in the brain, right?
Or gray matter. Doesn't that just refer to, like, brain matter in general?
Yeah, just brain folds, like...
Yeah.
There's a lot of else going on.
There's
We
a lot
just
going
don't
on.
like have the machine
so
to
much
figure it out.
going, even in between us. What we can't see.
So the next project that you and Mom brought up, which I think is a great idea, is to do some 3D models and animation of what these things look like.
That would be super helpful for just the way I learn and understand things. And with the technology that we have in 2022, I'm sure easily we could get somebody to
3D print it up.
3D print it, or get a graphic designer just to make it. Yeah.
And then again, most of this stuff is internal technology. What was known to the ancients, it's very fascinating what we have with computers and cell phones and all of this externalized technology, but it's also designed to pull us out of the internal and think that's why there's so many problems with people just like
staring at their phones.
Yeah, even just
addicted to the
waiting in a
screen.
line, scrolling through a phone. You can't spend 5 seconds
What
with
if
their own
that
thoughts.
technology was in your brain and you just were connected to the grid?
Yeah, well, that's the idea, is
Yeah.
restoring that to
Yeah.
bring that back in. So all of these exercises, when you can imagine them properly, you can use them in meditation and then go on journeys with it because your consciousness can travel.
Yeah,
with that.
I'm into it. I want to go.
Yeah, the merkaba
I want
field
to go
is your
to there.
your merkaba field is your interdimensional vehicle.
Oh, I have to learn those.
It's just pictures. All you need to do is see the pictures
And visualize.
and visualize. Yeah.
Yeah. Some people struggle with visualization, and it's a real thing. I do not. But I've met many people that just can't see something in their mind's eye. But you can practice by just closing your eyes and imagining what it would be like to walk from the kitchen to the bedroom. Do you know how far the hallway is, and do you know where the light switch is? And you can just practice by just seeing something, closing your eyes, and then imagining walking through there. So that's one of the practices that I was
That's a good
taught.
one. It takes
cool.
effort. And that's for
Takes a
people
lot
that
of
don't have their sixth strand active, which corresponds to third eye.
Third eye.
So that's what an indigo is someone that's born with sixth strand active, which in many cases can be a disadvantage because the work between those has to be done. But visualization is a function of that strand and that chakra being active enough that you can see with your mind's eye clearly.
Wow.
Yeah. I feel like we're almost at a saturation
Ready
point
to go
here.
for a nap?
It's been at least 30 minutes, I believe. So,
Yeah, I think it's been more than 30 minutes.
yeah. Do
It
you
looks
have
like
any
it's
closing
been
questions?
1,836 seconds, I think.
I can't do the math. on that. Oh, here, we'll end with this one thing. Okay. So 15 dimensions, right? And, oh, crap. Hold on. I'll edit that out.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you have any questions before we close?
I do, but I'm going to save that for the next round.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I like it.
Yeah, so this will be, what we're doing here is an introduction to some rather fantastic and amazing information that is essentially a roadmap to what we have forgotten.
Yeah.
And much like going into uncharted territory on another continent, if we have a map and compass to accompany us on that journey, it's going to make it much, much more enjoyable than just
Yeah.
going in blind. And far less dangerous.
It is time for joy. And this isn't for people who are wondering if ETs are real or not, or if you have a soul or not. This is knowledge that all of those things are already, we're beyond talking about that. They're out there.
How do you feel, Sarah?
I feel tired.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's a lot of information.
It is. It is. Sometimes you might need to nap because our strands in dimension 1, 2, and 3 get a little bloated and expanded when pulling in high frequency stuff. And if you take a nap, it's like releasing that upwards.
It's definitely nap time.
And that's sometimes dreams are processing what we've been experiencing in 1, 2, and 3 is just kind of like filtering that and
Yeah, like taking a poop.
Yeah, taking a shit.
And I would like to say, just to be inclusive, that although some people may not know about ETs and their souls and things, that this could open up that.
Oh yes, yeah.
You know, so everybody could benefit.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying is like if you're wondering whether or not they're real and you do a Google search and this comes up, then it's gonna like help. Help you out.
For sure.
In general, I'm quite sure that most people who aren't already asking questions like this would ever even stumble on this recording anyway.
Perhaps not.
But for those that will, I do feel, and thanks to both of your encouragement, that it is part of my duty and purpose to at least be sharing this.
Exactly.
What you know.
Sometimes when I feel like it,
Yeah.
if not with more diligence in the future.
When you've decided to come off the atrophy break.
yeah. If you're done atrophying, then
like,
let's record another session.
Exactly.
That's
I
awesome.
feel like
Thank you,
atrophying
Nate.
right now
Yeah.
on the bed.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for listening, everybody. It is January 15th, 2022, and we will be making more of these in the future. Thanks for listening, and love you too.
Aloha. Love you.
Oh.
My name is Nate.